hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Rome's continuing coverage of the Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice Conference right here in D.C. We have the great pleasure of being joined by Mr.
Bill Brinnier.
Welcome to the show. Before we get started, let our audience know a little bit about you, what you do, and how you came to the 9/11 movement to begin with, Bill.
Absolutely. Well, I am an architect. I've been licensed since 1984 and had a number of different paths that I took. And in my education, I met Frank DeMartini, and we'll talk about him as time goes on. I watched the Trade Center get built.
Wow.
I went to school in Brooklyn, and we could see from our dormitory room the two towers were under construction. I got there in 1971. I believe the towers construction actually started in 68, but by 1971, it was the winter of 71. I can't remember which one, but they were at two different levels. One was maybe 70 stories tall, and the other was maybe 40 stories tall. They were going up in tandem, and we watched them go up. And then throughout my education and throughout my time, I went to school in Brooklyn. I started in 71, but I stayed for 10 years. I really enjoyed New York.
Okay.
And that winter in 71, I met Frank, who was also an architecture student. And the two of us, there weren't any jobs for architects. Students at the time. There was a bit of a recession going on in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so the two of us got involved in the brownstoning efforts. There were a huge housing stock of somewhat abandoned buildings, and the gentrification was beginning. Today it's ridiculous, but we were in on the early stages of it, and we got a grassroots education in construction. So the two of us became fast friends. We got married. We had kids. We were in each other's pocket the whole time. As time went on, we sat for the exam. We got our licenses. We kind of took separate career paths, but we stayed very close. I would say Frank was as close as any relative. I knew his family. He knew my family. His mom and dad thought of me as another son. My mom and dad thought of Frank as another son. We were extremely close, and there was a great deal of love and affection and respect. Frank was a really amazing guy. So fast forward to the early 1990s. I was working corporate in New Jersey, corporate headquarters for Automatic Data Processing, ADP.
Oh, wow.
I was on the facilities planning team. At the time, I was running the West Coast team. So I was flying back and forth to the West Coast, for one construction project after another.
Okay.
And Frank had a little design firm in Brooklyn Heights. He had basically established a practice with his wife, who had gone to Pratt as well, and had gotten a degree in interior design. So they had a nice little thing going. But Frank kept looking at me and saying, geez, I'd really like to try that out, see what the corporate world is all about. And so he was looking for something. He was asking me to see if I could, get him a position at the ADP where I was. And one day he saw an ad in the paper. This was in 93 for a architect member of the damage assessment team at the World Trade Center. And this was Leslie E. Robertson, Lyra. Leslie was one of the original structural designers of the Trade Center, and his company had the contract with the Port Authority to maintain the structure of the entire complex. So Frank applied for the job, got the job. They liked him, and I'm not surprised. That's the kind of guy he was. He was really easy to get to like, and very curious. He just dove into things. So it was a 6-month temporary assignment, and he ended up staying for the rest of his life.
Oh, wow.
He actually didn't stay with Lyra. He got a job for his wife, Nicole, with Lyra. He really fell in love with Leslie and his wife. His wife was also a structural engineer and part of the firm, and they had a great relationship. So the Port Authority was dealing with Frank on a regular basis and kind of got to know him, and a position opened up as manager of construction. for the Port Authority at the World Trade Center, and he applied for the job and got it, which is pretty amazing because the Port Authority was really a difficult place to get a job. Once you had a job there, you were sitting pretty. So he got that job. That was in, gosh, I guess it was 92 or 93. And in 95, he would invite me to, tour the building, and he had this magnificent office on the 88th floor of the North Tower.
That I'm sure he didn't enjoy showing off.
It's 3 windows that looked at the Statue of Liberty. It was just amazing. So anyway, he got my brother and I on the roof. My brother Jack and I were our airplane enthusiasts. I'm actually a licensed pilot, and the two of us love to fly radio control, and we're just anything that flies is of interest to us. And they were having a flyby on August 11th, 1995, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II. So all these are World War II aircraft. So Frank got us on the roof of the North Tower.
Oh, wow.
And there's this trench that goes all the way around, and the edge, and there's a track on it that the gurney that goes up and down to service the outside of the building, clean the windows,
absolutely,
check everything, ran on that track. And it was funny because the building was canted at each corner. It was a 45-degree cant, and that cant was 60 feet wide, right? And those were just aluminum panels that went across, no windows. And the gurneys that were designed in Switzerland were not able to maneuver
make the
on
corner.
Those. They couldn't make those corners. They could just go back and forth, and then it would lift up, go around, and then drop down. Frank worked with this Swiss firm and figured out a way to do that so that they could actually basically pull those panels off and service anything inside. So it was a big coup for him.
Wow.
He tried to get me to get on that gurney and ride down. And I was like, Frank, I'm not doing that.
Not that I don't trust your work, Frank, but I'm all good.
Yeah, I was fine on top. It was we're 1,500 feet up in the air, and there's nothing between us and the ground.
I got
but air.
plenty of view from the solid ground. Thanks, Frank.
So anyway, we and you have no idea. You look up in the air and you see a P-51 fly by. It's easy to spot. Yeah. But when you're 1,500 feet up in the air, 500 feet above that airplane, looking down, and the backdrop is the Hudson River and the streets of New York, you cannot spot those planes very easily. So it took a lot of doing to get that camera zoomed in on those planes. But we got a lot of wonderful shots that day. It was just amazing. And yesterday, in my presentation, I showed a picture of Frank and I. There was we were standing in the center of the roof where the tower, the TV tower was. Yeah. And there was this elevated portion that was probably maybe 60 feet by 60 feet.
Yeah,
the tower was in the middle.
Poured concrete platform that supports the weight of the tower.
Exactly. And so I'm standing down below, and Frank is on it, so he looked taller than me in the picture, but Frank was a lot shorter than me. It was kind of funny. Anyway, so I ended up jettisoning from ADP and moving into a position with a contractor, a building construction contractor, and I was working on a project, a mid-rise residential tower down near. It was north of Atlantic City. It was on the Jersey Shore.
Okay.
So, and I lived in Rockland County, so I would come down every morning the Palisades Parkway, and I would scoot over on I-95 and then jettison down the Jersey Turnpike. So there's a complex of overpasses where you come westbound and you make a left turn basically and pass under all these overpasses, and then as you exit that, you're looking right at the World Trade Center. And it was about 9 o'clock in the morning on that beautiful Tuesday. I came around that corner, and the North Tower looked like a chimney. I mean, there was just all this black smoke coming out. So I got really nervous. And I'm listening to Imus in the morning on the radio.
As you're prone to do in New York.
So as I'm seeing this, he's starting to report it on the radio. So there's somebody said a small plane hit the World Trade Center. I was like, what? That doesn't look like a small plane. And at the time, God, where I was maybe 15 miles away from it, but such a big building.
Yeah.
But I'm proceeding south, right? So I try to call him, and there's no answer on his cell phone, right?
Okay.
So obviously he was a little bit busy. And when I got down to the point on the turnpike where I was basically adjacent to the two towers, I didn't see a plane hit the South Tower, but I saw the explosion, because I was driving 60 miles an hour, and I just kept looking over, and then suddenly the South Tower's on fire. And then I hear Imus in the morning talking about a second plane has hit, So I didn't know what to do. I continued down. I got to the project site and went upstairs to my project and started, getting the guys working and doing what I had to do. And at one point I went downstairs to get a cup of coffee in the break room where the building staff and they had a TV in there and they're watching it. And they say, can you believe this? They're looking at it. Like, wow, that's amazing. I went back upstairs. So every once in a while I'd go downstairs,
Yeah.
And the second time I went downstairs, they're like, the South Tower just collapsed. It's not there anymore. And I was like, what? That's impossible.
How is that
How
possible?
could that possibly be?
Yeah.
So, and they said, look, because there was this continuous run on the TV where they showed it over and over and over again.
Yeah. It was a pretty tragic, like as an AV technician and a broadcast technician, it was a tragic loop of video to just play for hours on end.
Which is what every channel did,
absolutely.
Every
ad
channel.
nauseum.
Every radio station, they canceled all their programming.
Yeah, there was no music playing.
It was all about 9/11.
It was eerie. It was wild.
It was really scary. So not too long after, I went down and they said, now the North Tower came down, So I didn't know what to do. I stayed the rest of the day. I went home about 5 o'clock. And I have to say, I never heard about Building 7 for over 2 years before I knew that Building 7 went down.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. And I mean, I was not too far. My daughter at the time had just finished college, and she had met this guy who was going to NYU, and they lived on Reed Street between Broadway and Church, which was right around the corner.
Yeah.
And she was working for a small jewelry firm on 19th Street between Broadway and Park Avenue, and had gone to work. And she get there, and everybody's like, did you hear what's going on downtown at the Trade Center? What? She found out. She went running out of the building, ran on foot, made it as far as Canal Street because she wanted. Chad was sleeping, as far as she knew. And she got to Canal Street. They turned her back. And so she was moping back up, didn't know what to do. All dejected, worrying. Chad wasn't answering his cell phone. She got to Washington Square Park, which is a few blocks away from where she worked, and everybody that was facing, she was heading north. Everybody facing south their jaws were dropped and their eyes were bugged out, and they were pointing over her shoulder. And she turned around and watched the South Tower fall.
Yeah.
She gets back to her office, and there on the street was Chad had just gotten there. And the two of them went straight uptown to some friends they knew on 57th Street. They had a car. They got in the car. They couldn't go to New Jersey. So they were able to get over the 59th Street Bridge out to Queens, and they just got on the LIE and didn't stop until they got to Montauk.
It bears to question. I'm sure my audience is anxiously awaiting. Did you ever get a hold of Frank? Was Frank in the towers, or was he just on location?
We know
what do we?
We know a lot about what happened to Frank. Frank, actually, so what he did is he gathered all his staff in a conference room, corner conference room, didn't have any real smoke. He found stairwell C was clear. He directed everybody down the stair, and then he and one other associate went up. And as I said yesterday in my presentation, they got, I think, 12 people off the 89th floor.
Wow.
And they made it up to the 90th floor. They had to break in because there was so much damage. But they got in, and they got 6 people off of that floor. They could not get any higher. So Frank was sweeping the building. We know this because he had a radio. He had a Port Authority radio. There's all this talk about how the FDNY and the police radios were conflicting, but the port radios worked really well. There is, I wish. I could
they were walking over each other's frequencies.
Exactly.
They were so close on frequency and then proximity.
Yeah.
It interrupted their chatter.
But there is all of Frank's transmissions from his Port Authority radio were recorded, and they have them.
Wow.
There was a journalist from the New York Times wrote a book called 102 Minutes, The Fight to Survive in the World Trade Center. And Frank is one of the major players because they had his radio. And, there's a blow-by-blow. We think he was somewhere between 25. He was sweeping the building, trying to, get make sure everybody was out before he left. He he felt responsible. It was his
It
building.
was his building. It was his building.
And I think he was somewhere between 25 and 15. He was on his way. Nicole got out, and everybody she took down got 88 floors. They went down.
Wow.
They all got out, save Frank's secretary had asthma, and she didn't get out. So she and Frank and this one other associate, I can't remember his name, they're all heroes. And a lot of people are walking around today that wouldn't be if it wasn't for them.
Absolutely.
And their efforts.
Absolutely.
But they were all pulverized, just vaporized
and
when that blew up.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your friend in that situation, especially doing what he loved for his life. You know, and as an architect, as somebody who does this for a living, designs buildings for a living, have just out of curiosity, have you seen any, if these buildings came down by fire, as stories and as the narrative says, as documents say,
right?
Have there been any appreciative changes to the building codes and building procedures for steel frame buildings? Let's just say above 40, you know, or 20. Let's go 20 because of building 7.
Yeah. To my knowledge, none have been made.
Yeah.
You know, it's everything's the same as it was. There are some, I mean, there's constant improvements to the code. You know, they're constantly
constant
improving.
improvements
But there
in
should have
technology
been,
as well.
There should have been massive changes after that.
There, you would think that there would have been a consortium called the American Institute of Architects or something like that, to be like,
which I am a former member.
What protocols can we follow? What things can we do to improve this? To be forward looking for the next 50 years as we try to go like Dubai and get 50 stories higher than what we are, and things like that, and continue going higher. You would think at that point, any of those things would be a debated topic amongst these communities who are linchpin to the safety of these buildings being built. But it hasn't been a part of the conversation.
No,
and that to me is one of the things that I point out to people regularly. Like, whether you believe in explosive demolition, whether you believe in nanothermite, whether you believe in controlled demolition in Building 7 or not, you have to beg the question of if these were, as far as we know, the largest death by fire in America, in American history, the largest death by fire, why has zero change been made to the building code?
It's a very good question.
Like, logically, you can start there and have zero conspiracy theory and just be like, why? Why? Well, we have changes to the way airplanes operate, to the way cars ride. Like, you have a car mat that goes underneath a brake pedal. You have an all-out recall. And a total read to the point that the next Toyota I bought 2 years later had no floor mats. Like, they took precautionary measures to prevent it in the future.
Exactly.
Nothing done here. Nothing.
Nothing. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And as evidence of that, Ted Walter twice, not once but twice, tried to bring about a ballot initiative on the voting ballots in New York City to bring about a requirement that every building that went up part of the permit fee would be a small amount that would go to research and improvements to the codes.
Sure.
And that was shot down not once but twice.
Wow.
Several years apart. In the interim between the two, he went to California and went to University of Berkeley. Or University of California at Berkeley, and got himself a degree in public policy.
Okay.
And came back to New York and tried it again. And all of the mistakes we made the first time, because they basically shot us down on legal grounds, right? Yeah. So we doubled down. I worked with him. We doubled down and got 3 times as many signatures as we needed, because we knew they were going to shoot down as many as they could.
Yeah.
We were very careful about this. And they shot us down again, a second time. You'd have to talk to Ted to get the absolute details.
He's the next interview.
But so hit him up on that.
He's coming up. Oh, we will be talking about it. Because once again,
very interesting.
it's a solid point of logic that I point out to people who don't want to have the conversation of Building 7,
Right.
who don't want to have because they're hard conversations and they're nebulous conversations, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
They're tough conversations. If you've
It's
lost
difficult.
friends, if you've
Yeah.
lost family, if you went to war because of this, it's hard to open your mind and your heart to some of these very, very hard truths that are presented through physics, that are presented through science, that was not represented in the NIST report, which was utterly slapshot thrown together so that we would have answers as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not like true forensic answers, which
Right.
may take years, but we had to have an answer right now,
Right.
so that we could go to war right now. And these are hard things for people to be able to accept in their life.
Absolutely. It changes your worldview,
Yeah.
you know, and it messes with people's image of what world they live in to such an extent that they just black it out. They are not willing to even consider it.
Absolutely.
You know? They don't even want to look at the evidence.
You know, there's an example of that I gave yesterday in an interview that I give online regularly whenever I do my episodes. But all of 5-10 years ago, there was an Eastern European town where they started doing some construction and came across a body and a body and a body. And it wasn't like, hey, here's a grave. Here's a grave. It was, here's a body. Here's a body. Here's a body. And as they began to look, there was a mass grave. This entire town had a concentration camp of Polish officers in it. The Nazis killed all of them and mass graved them. And the town collectively decided to never speak of it again or tell their children of those atrocities.
Wow.
Collectively decided, we will forget this ever happened in this location. Like, none of the people that lived there knew that there was a mass grave from a concentration camp of officers. And that's fascinating to think about. The willingness of people to say, we can all agree we're not going to talk about this, right? All right, cool. Deep breath. Let's make some more strudel. You know, like that's tough to think about. And it's hard for a lot of people to be confronted with these things. Yourself as an architect, where do you come down with these things? What is your learned opinion on the destruction of the towers, Building 7, the Pentagon, things like that?
I appreciate that question. I have been at this now for 24 years. And the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know.
Yeah.
And I that's my advice to everybody is just know that we know very little. And chances are we'll never know the whole truth. Any of us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I search for little bits and pieces, and I am very open-minded. There are a number of theories being played out in the room out there.
Yeah, a lot of hypotheses being thrown.
People have different ideas, and I try not to get hung up on mine. I try to stay open.
Yeah.
I try to consider everything that everybody says, because I think there's a little bit of truth in everybody's.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I don't know if it'll ever all come together, but the more we investigate, the more we know.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And there was a great deal of effort put in to covering it up by some very powerful people that were well connected, that were well funded. Yeah. As I said yesterday in my speech, I think 9/11 probably cost in the billions to pull it off. This was not something that was, done in a few months. It was done in decades. It's been planned for decades. And I have to say it was extremely successful. Yeah. I have to give credit where credit is due. They tried,
for just pushing the narrative,
what they shot to do, they did.
Yeah, for the Patriot Act and the things that have come about since because of.
It's still going on today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's a thread that goes back at least as far as World War II. And I think it goes back to World War I and maybe a little before that.
Yeah.
It's insidious. It's just, and it's fascinating.
It is.
The more I read, the more I discover that there's threads that go every which way.
Yeah.
You know, they all kind of are connected, but they all go off on their own little path.
And that brings us to an important point that we bring up on the show regularly, and that is the open-mindedness that not just science, but that the general public and even citizen scientists need to have when they're investigating things, when they're filtering data, you know, and you need to, it's very hard because we have both in science, investigative, in public, we have this want of confirmation married with confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a dangerous handshake of two things where it's like, wow, you really don't want to change your paradigm at all, or step out of the box or the comfort zone. And when it comes to science, to not want to step outside of the box, it's like, that's kind of your job, is to think and hypothesize outside of the box. Otherwise, we don't end up with E equals MC squared.
Right.
You know, you just have the Newtonian laws of physics, and them three, there you go. It's all you need. When we know now there's a lot that is non-Newtonian. There's like most of what controls the world around us is non-Newtonian. It's quantum physics that affects the Newtonian. So even the idea of that, like I remember in high school, the huge, and I graduated in 93. It was a few years after the superstrings theory had come out and the book was published and things like that, and that being a raging debate as to whether or not it was possible. This is a hyperbolic hypothesis, and we've got pretty good data on it now. You know, and that's just within 20 something years that something like that is an affront to science in many ways, but then becomes accepted science.
Right.
So you've got to be willing, even as somebody who is friends of victim, things like that, you have to be willing to let new data come into your data set.
Absolutely.
You know,
it's key.
And to see data dispassionately is just a point of data.
That's science.
Yeah.
That's what science is all about. You know?
Like, so
you have to be prepared for your theory to be wrong.
Yeah.
And you have to, your major focus has to be to prove it wrong.
And
if you can't prove it wrong, then maybe it is right. Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yes. Stand up, say it, and move on.
Because even the example I gave with John Cole was Einstein and E equals MC squared. When he put that out, and specifically when he put out the fact of gravitational lensing, the idea that a gravitational body may affect the way that a photon works, and that the only way we can test this, though, is by knowing where a star should be and being able to see a body in the middle. So it wasn't until an upcoming eclipse a couple years later that that was able to be proven.
Right.
But Einstein was working. He wasn't that great in math, believe it or not, folks. And he was very scared of his own math. And he put his paper out, and this Swiss scientist started going down the rabbit hole of the math, who was an amazing mathematician. Like that was his thing. And he was really worried that this guy was going to solve the problem that he may have left hanging before the eclipse and before Einstein could solidify his math. He fortunately ended up doing it first.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting story to show the fact that there is even a scientist there that, like, you ain't going to deny he's not one of the most brilliant people ever. Even he doubted his own theorem enough to doubt his math.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And that's an important point to bring up.
Was a
that,
true
like,
scientist.
you gotta be willing to say, I might be wrong here.
Yeah.
You know,
and
that's an important thing. So I want to thank you for your candid conversation today, for your continuance in this work and sharing your story, like you did in there. Let everybody know where they can go to find out more about you, Bill, where they can go to follow any of your work, things like that. Let them know right there.
Well, you can check me out at BrennierArchitect.com. That's me. And just Google the name William Brinnier. You'll get directed to what I'm up to.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it on this very busy conference. It's fantastic to see so many people here 1 year away from the 25-year anniversary with open hearts, open minds, hearing new things and taking in new data points. It's all so fantastic. So,
it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. While you are online checking out all of the amazing work of Bill Brinnier, folks, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe. International Center for 9/11 Justice. IC911.org is where you can find out more about not only this conference, but a lot of the 9/11 movement, as well as Richard Gage, 911.com. When we come back from this quick commercial break, everybody, we will be continuing with our on-site coverage of Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice right here in Washington, D.C., right after this.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Realm's continuing coverage of Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice right here in Washington, D.C. We are so happy to be joined by Ted Walter, who is with the International Center for 9/11 Justice, so the people who brought us out to this amazing conference. I want to begin, Ted, by thanking you for having us out. This is, like I told you last night, a community that I've been very adjunct to for a long time, connected cursorily with a few people, but even in preparation for this, deep diving into the topic, having Richard on beforehand, this is a topic that my mind has changed in numerous ways over the many years. And the fact that even today, there was numerous presentations where one person was presenting one thing and then somebody else is presenting something totally conflicting to that right after. And the fact, I was having a conversation with somebody earlier, the fact that everybody is still in the room, listening to both sides of the argument with open hearts, open minds. That's what this is about. It's so beautiful to see that in this community, because in many communities, UFO, UAP, paranormal, when you disagree with it, like, you just leave the room. You don't come back till the speaker's done. You know, and to hear people listening to dissenting opinions is a beautiful, beautiful thing when it comes to research. How did you get involved with the cause for 9/11 justice, Ted?
Sure. Well, Chris, thank you as well so much for coming out. It's been wonderful to have you here interviewing all of our speakers and organizers. And thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think you're referring to day 3 of this conference, which is a presentations and discussion about the attack on the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And you took the word out of my mouth. Beautiful. I was going to use to see these presenters who poured years of their time, their lives into researching what happened at the Pentagon, giving presentations with very conflicting points of view, and doing it respectfully.
That's right.
With minimal to no innuendo. And the audience is there listening intently, and